Hi, everybody. Welcome to Next Media. I'm Mike Shields. I'm here with my regular guest at AdTech superstar industry consultant, Emily Riley. Thanks for being here.
Superstar. I like it.
Yes.
This is my favorite intro so far.
I'm starstruck, so I couldn't even get it out. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about as we head towards the final stretch of this first half of the year, and Cannes coming up. You wanted to bring up something. This AI news constantly in our world and ad tech news. You wanted to talk about something with the agency world. What's going on? Because it sounds like it's the opposite of what was happening a few years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just talking to a lot of different companies that sell to agencies, it's become a bit of a tumultuous world. If you're trying to get that, hey, let's have a party where I give you free jeans or let me get your nails done, it's just not working anymore. And part of the reason is everybody's freaked out that they're about to get laid off. They're worried that they're about to get moved to a different client. Their clients have left.
Omnicom and IPG might merge, and
right. There's IPG. WPP is seeing they're just totally restructured. They don't know who's in charge. Everybody just feels unempowered in the media buying teams.
But so are you saying it's just like, I can't really make decisions right now because of that? Or are these deals happening on the brand level? Like for years, it was the Trade Desk claim to fame was we went to the agencies, built our business that way. We didn't screw them over. Is that what you're talking about? Or is it really just the general
any change approved
climate?
So you can imagine if you're an ad tech startup saying, hey, I've built a better whatever, curation or streaming or whatever, pick a thing. And you're going to the agency saying, hey, use your test budget to try me out. Use your innovation budget to try me out. Move something off of one of the SSPs that you work with and try me instead. A lot of times right now, instead of it being like, oh yeah, no, that sounds cool. Let me test it out. I'll do a small campaign. It's like, I don't even want to rock the boat at all. I don't want to try anything new.
No.
Don't even get me started on it's CYA basically right now.
It's not because there's no innovation budget or they don't know how they're busy. It's really like, I don't want to mess with things right now.
I don't want to mess with success because if the brand is mad at me, I'm worried everything's going to fall down to me.
Right.
I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get in trouble. So it's different, I think, than when we had even just like a year or two ago, brands were tightening their spending and it was all about just the uncertainty. A lot of it is just internal agency problems now.
Right. So it's like a duck and hide kind of time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but the good news to some extent is there is still growth and there is still innovation, but it's happening in sort of a different way. So what you have is a lot of these startups, because you think about like AI, you think about CTV and streaming, there is a lot of innovation happening right now.
Seems to be.
Going to eat the market somehow or another. They're just going through new channels. So you have buyers that already have an established relationship with Roku. Roku has a marketplace now. They're happy to tack on new innovations that people can test through their Roku budget.
Okay. So we'll take your innovation spending with the deal you already have versus trying to do a new thing that messes everything up.
Right. Exactly. So then that media buyer is like, well, it was part of the Roku marketplace. So, we spread our money around because we're buying CTV and streaming.
And look, we learned something and it got better, hopefully.
Rather than, hey, can we sign this new contract with this total upstart? So a lot of these startups are finding if they kind of like hitch their wagon to
someone who's already got the hooks in.
100%. And that could be an SSP.
Right.
It could also be more of like a media company.
It just sucks if you're a startup and you lose your independence early on, or you're, subject to someone else's business instead of just your own.
Yeah, but you can distribute that. What's really funny, what I hear almost all the time now as well, our biggest partner is Amazon, but we're not allowed to talk about it.
Mm.
Everybody's working through a ton of these big companies right now. Amazon is shoveling money towards ad tech startups through their own market.
Interesting. Consciously, or they're just like...
They just have a pretty good situation going where they're able to partner and integrate with a lot of people. They're a tech first company.
Right.
So it's really...
And they are very quiet. Their position is always going to be no comments.
They're pretty neutral, and brands love them because it's closed loop, because it's all retail oriented.
Yeah.
So you have some marketplaces like that. So CTV is one area of opportunity. Retail is another area of opportunity where you're getting brand dollars coming in because they feel like they have to spend there. And then they'll say, all right, well, how do I increase my incremental lift on Amazon? Oh, I could try a couple of these new techniques. So they're associating with Amazon instead of associating with risk new
Right.
startup. I don't
Right.
know what I'm going to get.
Right. That makes a lot, Amazon is not seen as a risk at all. Right? It's
Exactly.
almost like they know they know better than anybody what works. That makes
Right.
sense.
And they vetted this new whatever.
Right. They got to be, they're not,
thing or
they don't take crazy risks. Yeah. That's interesting. Speaking of Amazon, there was a good story in Adweek the other day about, you've been hearing a lot about their DSP coming on strong anyway. And I guess they are, according to the reporting, like a lot of dot brands are moving money from the trade desk or funneling more stuff for more activity through them for a combination of reasons. I think it seems like it's about rates. I don't know that they would, if you would know better than I did, like, is the Amazon tech that much better? I know the data is extremely rich, and Trade Desk will say they have all these other sources plugged in, but it is hard to beat that shopping data. But I thought that was a pretty interesting one that's, sneaking up on people.
Well, I mean, we can't forget Amazon's a walled garden, full stop. It is a walled garden. The Trade Desk is not today, right? Yep. So bad news for the open web is money is going towards yet another walled garden. I think good news is Amazon is a little less crazy about their walled garden situation than maybe like a Meta.
Huh.
So all I mean by that is they do tend to listen when CMOs push on them. So, the more recent thing that they've done is make it a lot easier to retarget and scale using their data off their property. So for a long time, they're like, we would not do that. Of course we wouldn't do it. And now that they have DSP technology, they have a decent exchange, they're more than happy to kind of play in the open web, like set of rules, like in that game.
So this could be good for the open web.
Right. Like Meta, you're not really hearing that kind of stuff as much, where they're like, yeah, we are trying to help you get reach off property.
No, I mean, well, and that's a good issue. Meta really doesn't have an ad tech option anyway. They're plugged into a lot of the web, but that's not really their game.
It's not the same. So it's like, while they do have their own proprietary data, they sell stuff on property that, creates this sort of cyclical spending effect for brands. They do seem to play a little better in the wider market.
Right. I wonder what happens to this dynamic if and when this Google decision goes forward and they have to spin pieces off. That would seem to be an advantage yet another advantage for the Amazon DSP in that market, even though they're sort of being a little bit, you could accuse them of using the same Google playbook. They will.
Yeah. I mean, they're one of the biggest search engines. Amazon, for anything retail, Amazon is a huge search engine.
Yeah.
So that alone, like, you think about and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but if Google has to sell Chrome, they basically are selling their search audience away. So there's no Google search without Chrome.
I mean, yes, you can open up Google. You can open a lot of different browsers and,
of course,
open a Google search box. But yeah, you're right. The easiness is gone.
Yeah, and then there's also, Chrome was an app that was automatically on every iPhone. There's a couple of little things like that aren't so little, obviously, but just you make a couple of changes to their business, and suddenly, like, the entire search market is open. And Amazon is like, okay, do we swoop in and like have a browser all of a sudden? Do we buy that browser?
Yeah.
OpenAI said they would buy that browser. So yeah, I mean, it's not just Amazon has a lot of volume and has a lot of shopping. They actually have a lot of search. They have, they have these other things where they do compete.
Yeah, they're almost as habitual for people as Google is these days, which is pretty hard to disrupt.
Ironically, you think of Mark Zuckerberg saying, well, I want people to give me their credit card and it's just open season and we're going to end-to-end create an ad.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, right?
Amazon has that not only with brands, they have that with every user.
Yeah.
Credit.
People, they've had my credit card for 1 million years and you don't even think about it. Yeah.
Exactly.
What about, this is a little bit of a left turn, but what about, I'm fascinated by the ongoing Paramount saga. It's wild because they've been trying to close this deal forever. And, the streaming wars were still a thing when this conversation started with Ellison and company. They're held up by the Trump administration. They're held up by this 60 Minutes thing. Now Sherry Redstone has had cancer and it's coming out. It's crazy drama. By now, in my view, you would have thought if you always kind of think eventually one of these media companies is going to say, we can't do this. We're going to merge Peacock and Paramount Plus. We're going to merge Max and Paramount. And this is all holding that up. If that ever happens, it's very hard to compete as it is without all this uncertainty. I just don't know what the ending is and how it's got to be very difficult to operate a business right now in this crazy ad market with this all going on.
Yeah. I mean, Paramount has so many layers of intrigue. It's unbelievable. I mean, one of the ones that's most interesting to me is so Sherry Redstone and sort of the Redstone cabal has only 10% ownership, but 80% voting rights.
Right.
So they got themselves into this mess, even though they don't own a huge portion
It's
of
like they do.
conglomerate. They are like the dictators of what happens in the future. And that's been a big problem is, it's not a democratic board where you have representation from both the streaming side and the broadcast side and everybody kind of is thinking about the future. They're just really saying, okay, like, how do I maximize my investment case closed?
Right.
You also have this like weird bifurcation of sort of fading cable channels.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon, MTV.
Once the crown jewels of the industry that are really
totally. And like they really didn't figure out, they could have been fast apps right at the beginning and done cool stuff to get on kids' iPads.
They fought with Google about YouTube for years instead of partnering. And now they're just, the brands don't mean anything.
Because they have great content. They have a ton of content.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the other side, which I think is surprisingly doing better. Like 10 years ago, if I had said to you, would you think CBS Sports and, CBS News would emerge triumphant in the age of streaming? You'd be like, no. But, it's live stuff that's hard to replicate in other ways. And so if you can find a smart, on-ramp for that stuff to go to the streaming world, people love live sports. Audiences are tuning in. That's where the premium ad sales are. So it's sort of once if this stupid lawsuit gets figured out, that's actually become like the more talked about asset under the big umbrella.
Yeah.
But you could imagine, again, like talking about Amazon, talking about Netflix, do they buy CBS? Like, does it get broken up for the parts? And people
I know that a lot of the tech companies don't want to deal with these legacy issues.
Right. It's like you're basically buying these totally tangled up contracts that are just, I can't even imagine how old they are. Some of them are probably 50 years old.
But it's got to be, the would-be new owners have all these plans, and they talk. Ellison has talked about, I want to fix Paramount Plus and make the tech work better and get an investment, and they just can't get going anywhere. And they're trying to sell in the upfront market. It's just crazy.
How long do you think it would take them to make an awesome streaming app experience? Years?
I don't know. It's funny.
3 years?
I mean, I'm like an old man and I watch all those Taylor Sheridan shows, and it's like so hard to use the goddamn app. Everything is pale as compared, in my opinion, to Netflix. Always works. It's always simple. I just don't think any
generations that matters a ton. They're make it work now generation.
I'll just bail. Forget it. Yeah.
Like, is Paramount Plus going to start appealing to 18-year-olds?
I seriously doubt that. Even though they've got all that old Nickelodeon and MTV stuff, I don't think that's the audience right now. Right. I think it's Yellowstone people.
Yeah.
But it's a weird way to be just like in limbo forever. And I don't know. The journalist in me wants them to fight back against Trump and not take the 60 Minutes thing and have some principles. But I know that the money at stake is so crazy that it's really hard to do that. But they might lose that whole news division and kill the morale there, and maybe people walk out the door if they end up capitulating to Trump in some way.
It's true. I mean, it's a weird time for news right now. That's for sure.
Does anything happen with, assuming that Elon and Trump still stay fighting, and that could change? I don't see anything for the X business changing because of that. But is there any possibility that could become less right wing, less toxic, more appealing to brands, or is that ship just completely sailed?
Well, I'm pretty sure back in the day, both Elon and Trump were Democrats.
That's
so
correct.
The whole thing is somewhat self-driven. One key note here is Elon Musk must be psyched for how many new people are signing up to X just to watch the fight.
Yeah, the show. You can't miss it.
He's definitely getting a ton of ad impressions and new users out of this. As long as he lets.
But he might lose his government contract, so the trade-off might not be so great.
Right, exactly. Like Trump has gotten kicked off of a couple social media networks in the past, but for right now, I think he'll be allowed to be obnoxious on X for a little while.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, I mean, you're right. X has been, I don't know, they sort of sold their soul to the devil a couple of years ago, and nothing's changed all that much since then. So.
Yeah, I don't know if the people that left, I don't know if they're going to come back other than this fight.
Right.
What about a company you've brought up a lot, and it's been in the news. They're fascinating. AppLovin obviously is they've been a fascinating story. Someone suggested to me I wrote this piece this week about all these startups that are trying to enter the TV industry, but trying to bring small brands to the medium. And Eric Franchi of Imperium Capital actually suggested AppLovin, which I never thought of, because they're so good at performance advertising and driving installs for games. All these companies. Do you think that's crazy that they would ever tinker in the TV industry in TV advertising space in any way? Or what do you make of them in this weird position they're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the connection through the phone because honestly, a lot of Gen Z, for example, and younger watch on their phone. They watch TV
their
on
phone first. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't care about the big screen in the living room as much. So, if it's just sort of an app game, then the question becomes, can you mash up best practices for gaming, for social, for TV? And advertisers can buy sort of some engagement package or, I think one thing AppLovin really understands is that sort of repeat up-leveling somebody with cash or conversions. It's a very conversion-based ad sale that they tend to be making with their advertisers. It's a much more engaged type of audience than like a typical old school linear TV sale where you're sitting back and just watching a brand commercial. So, they might be a nice bridge to what the future of more interactive streaming looks like.
Yeah. I wonder, are the capabilities going to be the same if the ad tech and data in television is just not comparable to mobile web and what they're used to? They would have to translate their business, and everyone thinks it's getting there, but I don't know if it's going to happen quickly enough to be as effective.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, streaming is addressable, but you don't have PII, you don't have their credit card, like all these things that a gaming app has. You're not dealing.
There's really only two big players, and in Google and Android. I mean, Android and Apple versus TV is all over the place. Yet it is just a little bit of a complicated market. Okay, this is your idea, but I think we should talk about it. We talked a lot about AI and PII and all these crazy things. Now let's talk about Sydney Sweeney.
Let's do it, Mike.
Obviously, most people who know this, you can buy her bathwater, as I understand it. 1 million fans have already entered this giveaway. What does this tell us when you hear Meta saying they're going to be able to make all the commercials for you and it's really easy? I know that people in Japan marry their avatars and maybe there'll be a fake Sydney Sweeney someday that they can pull this kind of thing off with, but she's both influencer and movie star. What does this tell you about creative in the future and the assurance that AI maybe not?
Yeah, I do wonder, is there really ever going to be a day in our lifetime where there's some AI creative algorithm out there suggesting to a brand, hey, you should take Sydney Sweeney's bathwater and put it in a soap? I think it'll work really well as a game changer. Talking to the different types of AI startups out there, you have kind of two kinds. One is kind of the Mark Zuckerberg mentality of let's automate everything. We should just press one button and never think about this again. And then there's the other type, which is we live in a world of humans, and the elegance of what we do is live each day like it's different, and we're creative, and you don't know what's going to be around the next corner.
Right.
Not just based on past data. Like algorithms are based on past data. It's like sometimes new
creativity is always about sparks and new things. Come
out of left field, and that's where awesome ad campaigns come from. That's where great new product ideas come from. And, AI should support that. AI should drive more and better and more interesting and more fun campaigns. They shouldn't just automate the crap out of everything so that it's all just lamesville. I don't know. I just we can't go to just this medium, acceptable, but boring. I just don't think it's the right approach, So,
I wonder, I was actually talking to somebody about this. Acceptable but boring, is that going to be enough for brands when the other cost benefits are so good? That's going to be sad, and it's not going to win you awards.
For some, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You have to spend money to make money kind of thing. It's you have to take those risks to make a leap to be the market leader. I think you can be a follower and make an efficient business by being average.
Right.
You're not going to see those amazing growth stories come out of it.
You're not going to be a cultural breakthrough. You're not going to, become quote unquote buzzy, at least, not yet, until we are maybe out marrying avatar people.
Right. Once we have a chip implanted in our brain that's connected to a database, then we'll talk. But
which might be, I don't know if we may have talked about this, but the There's that Axios piece about how we're all going to get laid off, and there's going to be no white collar jobs in like 2 years, and we're just going to have like subsidies. If we're there, then I might take a fake bath soap from a fake influencer, and
I'll just just farm your backyard. Nice garden, have some tomatoes.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Make it work. Yeah.
All right, Emily, great stuff. Let's talk again soon. Thanks for your time again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Take care.